My name is Kristen Holt, and I am the CEO of GreenPath Financial Wellness, and I'm your moderator today for this session. GreenPath is a national nonprofit financial counseling and coaching organization, and we're working towards our vision of remixing the American dream so it works for everyone. As everybody knows, a company's vision can operate as a real North Star for its employees, and it's a signal to the community of their dedication to their customers, their employees, and the community. A strong, clear vision rallies employees, focuses companies' resources, and promotes organizational efficiency. When we set our vision at GreenPath, it helped us transition from a focus primarily on debt reduction to a broader and more compelling why, helping all people reach their dreams through financial health. Throughout this session, we'll be exploring how U.S. Bank is building its vision for financial health. So I'd like to start by introducing Reba Dominski. Reba joined U.S. Bank in June of 2015 as the president of the U.S. Bank Foundation and SVP of Corporate Social Responsibility. In 2017, she was promoted to Chief Social Responsibility Officer, and in 2019 to EVP, Chief Social Responsibility Officer. Reba leads U.S. Bank's community efforts to maximize social, environmental, employee, and business impact. She leads the U.S. Bank Foundation, volunteerism, environmental sustainability, community affairs, and financial education strategy. She also leads the bank's CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, activities focused on lending, serving, and investing in low to moderate income communities. So as we delve into this session on vision, Reba and I will be discussing the tactical efforts that have gone into building and expanding understanding of financial health at U.S. Bank. What do leaders and employees need to do to keep momentum going? And we really welcome any questions or comments that you might have in the chat. We're going to try to address as many of those as we can at the end of the session. So Reba, I'm so happy to be able to talk with you. Let's start with having you share U.S. Bank's financial health vision and how it's evolved over time.
I'm happy to do that. Thank you so much, Kristen. And I have to say, your vision statement about remixing the American dream so that it works for everyone, I hope I got that right, is so incredibly inspiring. I might steal it and apply it at U.S. Bank.
Please do, because it takes all of us to do this. We can't do it alone.
That's exactly right, which is why I'm so grateful for your leadership in this space. And I'm so excited to be a part of this discussion. U.S. Bank has been a member of the Financial Health Network for years, and we've been collaborating with FHN for about 15 years. FHN CEO Jennifer Cheshire is a member of our Community Advisory Committee. We have this group of 16 community leaders from across the country who help shape and advise us on our social impact strategies. So I'm just a huge fan of FHN. I'm a huge fan of Jennifer and the team. And I'm a really big fan of the MAP framework that I know is going to be the focus of much of our conversation. You already talked about the portfolio of activity that I lead at leading corporate social responsibility at U.S. Bank. There's a lot of different pieces to the puzzle of the work that I do. And financial education became a part of my portfolio a few years ago. And I started, as every good leader does, by hiring the right person to lead our financial education strategy. Her name is Corey Yamada. And when Corey came on board, she helped me see that we needed to build a roadmap to move from financial education to financial health. And I want to tell you where we started, and I don't think it will surprise anybody who works in corporate America, and it definitely won't surprise anybody who's in financial services. We started, as we always do, with data and insights. And I want to share just a couple of the data points that we shared with our senior leaders, and these should sound familiar to everyone who's listening in. The first is a stat on macroeconomic data. 40% of Americans, as we all know, cannot afford a $400 rainy day expense. If you look at customer insights, we learned that 58% of customers prefer receiving advice through a bank website or a mobile app. We were delivering a lot of in-person financial literacy training in branches, and almost 60% of people were saying that's not how we want to get our training, our information today. And of course, we looked at employee insights. And one of the most interesting and stunning stats about employees in America is that 45% of our employees in this country live paycheck to paycheck. So when we shared that data with our senior leaders and our CEO, they all had a very similar reaction. They said, we're a bank and we can do something about that. So what should we do? And where do we start? So we started with an inventory of our current efforts. We looked at everything we were doing across the enterprise related to financial health, and it was a lot. Through that inventory, we identified gaps. Where are the gaps? What are we not doing that we should be, that will provide value to our employees, to our customers, to our key stakeholders? We then built a roadmap. And one of the most important things we did, Kristen, with that roadmap is we built it into US Bank's strategic plan, which means that we reviewed that roadmap with our board of directors. And as many know, nothing builds forward progress and accountability like board level engagement. One of the first things we did on our roadmap was started pulling all of our content together so that customers, employees, stakeholders could access it. We created this holistic set of financial education offerings through a site that we call Financial IQ. It launched in 2018 and is now offered in English and in Spanish. And then we followed our roadmap. We accelerated our work around all of our key stakeholders. And I'll stop there because I know we're going to talk more about our specific plans with those key stakeholders.
Yes, that actually is my next question. So how have you rallied employees and stakeholders across the organization around this vision?
Yeah, it's really important to make sure that our employees are empowered with this vision and, more importantly, with the knowledge, the skills, and the behaviors that would enhance their own well-being and also better prepare them to serve our customers. That was one of our key insights, is in order for bankers to do what they do, they have to be knowledgeable and they have to be secure in terms of their own financial health. So some of our strategic priorities, one of our most important strategic priorities was to launch an employee wellness program. So we partnered with FHN, of course, to survey our employees on their financial health, and we used a pulse map to do that. And through that survey, we learned that our employees largely mirror the financial health of the typical American population, including some of those stats that I cited earlier. We found that many of our employee bankers don't feel like they themselves are financially healthy. In fact, we found that frontline bankers are twice as likely to report that they do not have emergency savings and they have higher spending than their income. So we used all of this rich data to pilot a financial wellness program with our employees in consumer banking. We picked where our frontline bankers reside and we said, let's test this, let's pilot it, let's try it with them. We highlighted both existing and new resources, and most importantly, we really encouraged our employees to take action, including taking a very simple health assessment to understand where their needs and gaps were, starting a rainy day fund, or participating in a webinar. We offered small steps to say, just start here, try this. We provided badges and incentives. Everybody knows that the way to incent anybody to do anything in this digital world we live in is through badges and incentives, and it made it fun for employees. We focused on sharing knowledge and encouraging our employees to develop new routines. It's really important to us. Not just that you take the fun test or you do the fun webinar, but that you incorporate what you've learned into your routine. And importantly, we wanted to make sure that our bankers were sharing the knowledge that they had and the best practices and routines that they developed with their customers. We had really strong positive feedback. We learned a lot from that pilot. And we rolled out a version of this program to all of our employees earlier this year, and we're getting great engagement from those employees. One specific example I'll give you that I mentioned earlier is this Rainy Day Savings Fund. We rolled out a Rainy Day Savings Employee Challenge. It's a 6-week virtual challenge to help employees develop beliefs and habits to start setting aside emergency funds. So through this pilot with employees and the rollout of the program, we're testing, we're learning, and we're understanding how to optimally engage our employees in the vision and the work, but also to support them with the right tools and knowledge and resources. And the beautiful thing about that is we're creating 70,000 plus advocates for our work. that will talk to their customers, that will talk to their communities about our vision for financial health at US Bank.
That's awesome. And it's just so great for them to talk about it from their personal experience. Like, it just makes it so much more relatable. Like, I did this and you can do it too. That's fantastic. I could talk to you about that forever, and I have a bunch of questions if we don't get other questions. So, so I'd love to talk more. What about leaders? So what role do the leaders in the organization need to play in building this financial health vision for the organization and with the organization?
Yeah, you know, Kristen, there's different cultures in organizations. So I would encourage everybody to think about what is their organizational culture, and then how do you make what you're trying to do work within your organizational culture. When I came to US Bank and when financial health became a priority, we are a pretty tops-down organization. And so we really started with this vision and the roadmap at the top. As I mentioned, we shared it with our board of directors, so the very top of the house, and we integrated it into our strategic plan. And we partnered with every member of our managing committee, every business line, so that they could think about, what does this mean to my business line? What does this mean in terms of the products and the services and the experiences that I'm offering? So we started at the top, but then we really tried to keep this steady drumbeat of stories, knowledge, and resources building kind of across the organization. A consistent drumbeat and messages from leaders like Tim Welsh, who is our head of consumer banking, our CEO, Andy Cesare, who just volunteered teaching kids on LA's South Side about home mortgages. You know, creating kind of both data and story to inspire our employees to kind of stay engaged and get engaged. So storytelling really helps us maintain the momentum. It helps us translate the importance of this work to the core business of banking. And then all the individuals on the front lines, including our business resource groups, help us innovate this program, help us learn from their experiences, and then really help us extend it with passion to all of the customers and communities and stakeholder groups that they serve.
That's awesome. It sounds like you've really created a sense of ownership and accountability within the organization and throughout. That's great.
That's right.
So what advice do you have for someone who wants to take their organization on this financial health vision and creating this financial health vision? What should they do to engage their leadership team or their employee base in building the strategy? What do you think?
Yeah, I would again emphasize starting with data and insights. You know, in the work that we do, it's so important to ground everyone in kind of the state of the state, what we're hearing from key stakeholders. That's a really inspiring way to bring together both the numbers and the story to convince people that something different needs to happen. You have to build that business case. I really would encourage everyone to deploy the financial pulse map, i.e. the financial health assessment, as a really simple, one quick turnkey way to really make sure that you're understanding your audience. Second, we do this across the bank, and it applies here as well. Use an agile approach. You know, build it fast. Create your skateboard. Fail a lot. Learn quickly, and then improve within each iteration. We all know that if we didn't use an agile approach, we would start talking about it in 2021, and in 2025, we would have the product that was perfect that would launch, and it would no longer be relevant to any of our key stakeholders. So take an agile approach, and don't be afraid to fail and learn from that experience. Break down the silos, you know, really encourage this cross-functional approach to this opportunity around financial health. You know, treat financial health like a measurable business outcome, just like revenue, just like loan growth. Financial health is that important. So we have a dedicated team member, for example, in marketing. We've got a dedicated team member in customer experience and data science and digital and retail, who all work with my team to bring this strategy to life. You need a strong cross-functional team of experts. And then finally, and this is where, again, FHN and others can be so helpful, partner with nonprofit organizations and with experts to learn, to share ideas, and to gain expertise. They are our most valuable partners in the work that we do.
Awesome. Yeah, and I just want to add to what you're saying. You know, you're doing so much, and it's fantastic. And obviously, you guys are a big organization, which brings its complexities. At the same time, it brings a lot of resources. And so I just want to encourage everybody on here, if you're big or you're small, this is really possible to do, because it takes all of us to be part of making this vision come to life. And so even if you don't have all the resources to buy the things or dedicate the roles, I think you can create that sense of ownership with your team to really, own making an impact. So we have some audience questions, so let's move into those. And this is actually very aligned with the question I was going to ask, so perfect. So the question is, what are some of the key metrics that U.S. Bank is using to understand the impact and outcomes of the financial wellness initiative? And I was curious specifically for your employee base too, which was not part of that question, but I'll shove mine in there too.
Yeah, so interesting and fascinating question. I'm going to be honest and tell you where we are in our journey, and this is definitely on our roadmap. Today, we measure outputs. How many people attended the seminar? How many people logged on to Financial IQ? How much time did they spend on the page? What we need to partner with FHN and others to do, and we're doing that, is move from measuring outputs to measuring outcomes. And in banking, that is tricky, because when you want to look at someone's savings and you want to understand, did they save more as a result of whatever you've offered them, there are privacy and data issues that you have to manage through. So I would say today we have a solid set of outputs. We are really working to get to outcomes. And our employee population, Kristen, to answer your question, is one of the places we're starting, because our employees can opt in to sharing that information with us, which is something we can also do with our customers over time. So we're starting with our employee base, and right now the focus is really, let's stop measuring all of those outputs and things that don't really tell us, are we changing behaviors? Because ultimately that's what we want to get to, but we are still early in that journey.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think your employees is a great opportunity too, where they can share their success with each other. So again, if I see someone who's in the same job as me and they're like, I managed to get my $400 savings account built up, and here's how I did it, like, it gives them great opportunities to learn.
You got it.
Okay, I'm not seeing other audience questions yet. So let me go to some of mine. Oh, wait, no, there's one more. Here we go. Okay. So when you started your journey, where did the strongest skepticism about the investment in financial health come from? And it sounds like you've overcome some of that, but would love to hear about the hurdles, or maybe just other learnings that you've had. Like if you could say, like, don't do this didn't work.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I would say some of the biggest skepticism was truly from our finance department when they looked at some of the numbers that we first put out there for necessary investments. But I think this comes back to, Kristen, something that you said, which is this work actually doesn't have to be that expensive. In that agile mode, you can try, you can pilot, you can test things. And that's how we've successfully overcome some of the naysayers, is to say, okay, we want $10 billion. You start with a big number and they go, no. And then you go, okay, we can do it for $1 million, but we'll try it in this small way. We'll learn from it. And then we'll prove out our theory that this is going to benefit the bank and our customers. And so collecting that feedback is really, really important to kind of prove out the theory. So I would say, we've been pretty scrappy. And Corey, who I mentioned, is a part of this. The other thing I would say is, I don't have the biggest budget at the bank. I know it's shocking. Corporate social responsibility does not have the biggest budget at the bank. The business lines, the revenue generators, have some of the biggest budget dollars. So Tim Welsh, who I mentioned, is our head of consumer, he and Corey and I are attached at the hip, and he is the biggest advocate and believer for this vision and this strategy. And what that means is when we can't find the dollars ourselves, Tim will also sometimes come with dollars in hand to say, I believe in this and I can afford to pay for it. So be creative about the sources of revenue to fund the initiatives that you're looking for. Partnerships inside the bank and outside the bank have been critical to help us raise the necessary dollars to invest really meaningfully in this vision.
That's fantastic. Those are all really great ideas. Thank you so much for sharing today, Reba. I could talk to you forever, and I'm going to when we get done here. But I just really appreciate what you and U.S. Bank are doing to make an impact in improving financial health in our country. You're going to help us achieve our BHAG. So I just think that's fantastic, and it's been a pleasure just learning from you, and I hope everybody has enjoyed the session.
Thank you so much, Kristen, and thank you for your leadership at GreenPath. It's really, really inspiring, and we are going to find ways to work together. So thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Reba.